Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Engine Builder Show. On today's topic, Gabe will be talking about how to ensure your message gets through loud and clear to your audience. If you think you're having trouble letting your audience hear you, then this is the episode for you. Enjoy, everybody, and relax. Oh, Good morning, everybody.
There was always a ton to learn. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hope your week's going well and your February has been successful so far. What I want to talk today about is how to ensure that your message gets through loud and clear to your audience. And one of the things that I've learned over the years as an entrepreneur, as a leader in a lot of different roles and spaces, is that when we're intentional about our communication, when we practice improvement there, that's when we actually have the opportunity to really move our teams forward to achieve the goals we want to achieve, and to also just to be able to really serve our clients at the highest level as well. And so there's three things I'll talk about today that I found in my experience and opinion are really important as it relates to communicating effectively. And the first thing that I think, I know for me, it took me a while to really understand this and realize it, is the intention that you set for the message that you're going to share is probably equally as important as everything else in the process. So before I show up to a sales call, to a team meeting, before I show up for this show, I set an intention of what I want to happen, the energy that I want to really broadcast, and the things that I want to share. And when we start out with that and we set an intention, that's where we really have the opportunity to guide the communication and the result of that communication in a positive manner. Whereas if we're busy, if we're distracted, if we don't just take a moment to calm ourselves and really set that intention, then it's a little bit more all over the place. And the example that I always use, because I think a lot of us have experienced this, is if you have a good friend or your partner, your spouse, and you're texting and everything's good, they can send a one-word answer like yes or great, sounds good, or something like that. And the energy behind that message is clear. You feel it and everything's good. Whereas if there's been some tension or frustration or an argument, they can write back okay, 2 letters, and you'll sense the energy behind that message, the intention behind that message, and you can sense that they're upset with you in a lot of cases. And so the intention and the energy behind what we communicate is so critical. And so that's one of the first things that it's really important to realize and just be intentional about when we make when we set up and kind of strategize and think through how and what we want to communicate. The second thing that's important to pay attention to is using clear frameworks, because having the right intention, being intentional about what you're going to share is key. And then once you kind of have that set, then realizing, okay, how can I be most clear, most effective in my language? And a couple of frameworks that I talk about in my book, Atomic Words, which you can pre-order a copy of it. It's coming out here very soon. You can go to atomicwordsbook.com and you can order it there. But a couple of the frameworks that I talk about are, one is called ARC, A-R-C, and this is something that you can use verbatim, or there's a shortened version as well that we can talk about in a minute here. But ARC stands for ask, reason, and context. And if you open a conversation and you say, I want to ask you if you can help me with this project, the reason is I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't know if I'm going to be able to meet the deadline because I don't have enough time or resources. And so that's why I need help. And let me get into the context of why I'm asking this. There was a change on the project. There was a delay with one of the vendors. We didn't expect this challenge. Here's all the things that are going on. And when you explain things in that order, you give your listener, an audience of one or many, you give them the opportunity to clearly know what you're asking and what result that you want. So starting with that ask allows your listener's mind to just focus in on and categorize the rest of the information that comes after that. Giving somebody a reason, the why, behind why you're asking, will help them be motivated, help them understand how they can help and what they can do. And then all the context that comes after that will make sense because they'll be able to categorize that information, the details, into, different buckets essentially in their mind that show them, what to do and what to do with that information. Often, I think all of us have experienced this, and across all different situations, all different types of peoples, all different genders. In my experience, we've probably experienced where somebody starts out with all context. And so they say, yesterday I was, ran into this challenge and like all these things happened. And then Bob made me really mad. And then, Sally was, huge pain to work with. And then I got home and then, my kid was sick, and, they just go on and on with all this context, and you don't know the point of why they're telling you that context. And so when we all do that, we all have times where we start out with an unclear ask or with no ask at all. And so somebody's just listening and they're trying to sort out, what are they talking about, or why are they sharing this information? I'm just confused. And so with context up front, we end up brute forcing somebody's brain, just like when a hacker sets up a bunch of different computers to target one website, and they just send tons of requests and tons of information, and eventually they knock down that site because it's an overwhelm of information, an overwhelm of small little requests that don't make sense. That's what can happen with our listener's mind, and when we come with context first. So that's why it's really important to have a clear ask, because then all the information after that is going to be sorted and made sense of in our listener's mind. So avoiding starting with context first is key, and instead using the format of, I want to ask you for this specific thing, the reason that I need this is here, and here's the context and information. When you communicate that way, it's going to be a lot more efficient. It's going to be a lot more effective in, getting your message across, and the person listening to you is going to know exactly what you need. So that's an example of one framework. There's a lot of different frameworks that I talk about in my book. And another one that's kind of like a shorthand or shortcut to ARC, the ask, reason, and context framework, is just the problem I'm trying to solve. So if I reach out to you and say, hey, John, the problem I'm trying to solve is I'm stuck on this, I'm stuck with this piece of website code. It doesn't work. There's an issue here. What do you recommend? That's a very clear ask. Like, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. It dials in somebody's focus. They know exactly what you need. They know exactly what help you need. And that's going to allow them to step in and help. So those are just two examples of frameworks that can work, really well for you. The third thing is, if you really want to be effective in making sure that your messaging gets through loud and clear to your audience, you need to practice consistently. And practicing doesn't make us perfect. Practicing gives us the opportunity to be excellent. And there's a big difference between those in my mind, because when we practice consistently, we'll continue to refine and hone the process that we use. We'll continue to strengthen, our skills. We'll uncover areas where we can grow and change. And, excellence comes with just a continual growth and reinforcement of things that you're good at and things that you want to improve on. Whereas perfection is a little bit of a concept that I struggle with, because I don't know if there's really a lot of things that are perfect. Perfect would be without blemish or flaws. And we, as communicators, we're never going to be perfect. We're always going to have things that aren't perfectly clear. We're probably always going to have little stumbles or filler words or things that don't, serve our audience. However, if we're continually practicing and we just continue to look at how can we really show up with clarity in our intentions, how can we use clear frameworks that allow us to communicate our message in an effective manner. If we continue just to practice those things and then evaluate our conversation and our communication, then we are going to have the opportunity to grow and change. And so those are the things that I really encourage you to practice. The other thing to share is, I'm very happy to announce that my book is now printed and is a bit, is in the final process of getting printed. You can actually, I have early copies, which I'll be sending out to a few folks. But you can also check out atomicwordsbook.com. You can pre-order it there. And if you pre-order it, send me a copy of your receipt, and I have some bonuses for you. Also, if you're on my email list, we talk about that a little bit today, so you can check that out as well. But if you pre-order it, you'll be able to get the book with all the different tools, all the different frameworks, all the things that I teach inside of it. And I'm confident that if you use these tools, they're going to help you become an effective communicator. And when you're effective in communication, it means that things are going to move faster. You're going to have less frustration, less confusion, And those things lead to better relationships, more profits, and ultimately better results for you as a leader, as an entrepreneur. And your team will also thank you for learning and growing as a communicator. So I appreciate you taking time to tune in and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Again, check out atomicwordsbook.com, and that way you can pre-order your copy. And if you need anything else, please reach out. Thank you so much for tuning in.